One huge obstacle among the many with this project is how the heck do I get utilities on, unimproved land? The 40 acres that I bought have no utility access. So Danny had about 100, Jeff has the remaining 60, and that's with the house and all the utilities. How do I get utilities? Well, I've shared the video before with the water line. I had to get a water tap. That was $4,300. And I had someone, run a pipe to the greenhouse. That was another $5,500. And I'll have to run that up to the barn once the barn is built. So I have water on the property now. I met with Middle Tennessee Electric, and that's going to be another big project too. Do I want to go above ground? Do I want to go underground? Of course, both have pros and cons and very different expenses attached to them. And then the big thing, which I've shared a little bit about, is septic, right? Like, I don't have sewage here, so I have to figure out how, if I'm gonna have showers and toilets and everything on the property, how does septic work? So in Tennessee, Williamson County, there's a lot of good things about it. There's a lot of hard things about it. I don't want to say crappy because that would be a bad pun, but the septic program is really, really difficult. I've had to go to many, many meetings. It's extremely expensive. I actually got my septic plat recorded in 9 months, which is pretty short, from everything else I've heard. It takes most people about 1.5 years. But, I was pretty persistent. I did what they said. I was able to navigate it in a way that worked. And my plat got recorded at the end of May, which is a really big deal. And I'm very, very relieved that for both septic fields on the property, I will need conventional systems as opposed to something that's like a low pressure or a modified, which is way more expensive. Now, a conventional system in Williamson County is still going to cost me an arm and a leg, but another system like an LPP or a modified would be even more expensive. So today I'm going to share with you what's next on the septic. Here's the septic field for the barn. You can see all these stakes here and where I just mowed. So the first step was getting a soil scientist out here to test the soils. I used Mike Harbauer, he did a good job. And then my surveyor came out and then he mapped different points that the soil scientist marked. So what they did was they created a soil grid. And then once the soil grid was created, they submitted that to Williamson County Sewage Disposal. They, anticipated the size depending on the use for the barn, etc. So the grid, it was 30 stakes that were running all through here. It was like truly a grid, and I should have taken a video of it before I took all the stakes out. So once my plat was recorded, that meant I could now apply for my building permit. And when you're applying for your building permit, the first thing is you have to go through septic again and make sure that they sign off on, yes, we know where the septic is, the building is not going to be on top of it, we'll give you a permit. So in order to do that, my surveyor had to come out and see all of these stakes. I pulled out the grid, and then these are the septic fields. And what the county now requires is I have to create a 25-foot barrier around all of these flags, just so nobody disturbs the septic area. And it's a little silly because the barn is going to be, in between these two pole barns on the other side of the barn, but that's their policy. So I have a huge area right here, as you can see, and part of it is in the horse pasture. And it's a super hot day at the end of June in Middle Tennessee, and here's my tools. I stopped at Home Depot. I decided to go with this type of fencing instead of silt fence. It's going to be a little harder to install, I think, because it doesn't have the wooden stakes attached, but I chose this because there's big holes, and so my thought is, like, when it's on a windy day, it won't be blown over. I don't know, it just seemed like it would be more stable. Then I have this leftover rebar from the deer fence, which you can remember the deer fence, see that over here. I've got my measuring tape, I've got my flags, I've got my post pounder, I've got my little hammer. So I have to measure 25 foot around the whole border here of all of these stakes, put my little fence up, and then I can let Williamson County know I did it, and then I can move forward in the permit process. There's 3 septic fields, A, B, and C. Here's septic B. These are all marked, and I have to go at least 25 feet out. I'm marking it with a flag, and then I'll go and put a piece of rebar and that orange fence. So I just hopped on the tractor for a bit, just to cut around the edge a bit more. 25 feet is wider than I thought, so Always something to do.
I really should have got up at like 5 a.m. and done this, but I had to go deliver flowers this morning, and then I had a bunch of legal work, but this was tough, mostly because it was so darn hot. And there's some gaps, you know, so I have to be able to have machinery go in to mow, and also since part of it is in the horse pasture, the horses need to be able to get through. So hopefully the county's okay with that. I'm gonna resubmit my application for my building permit tomorrow. Now that this is fenced off, I should be able to move along.